evening, and welcome to the Coeur d'Alene Parks and Recreation Commission meeting, March 19th, 2018, and the last official day of winter. So,
That's right.
spring starts tomorrow.
Let the snow fly.
Yeah. Melissa, would you take roll for us, please?
Commissioner Cranston.
Here.
Commissioner McDowell.
Here.
Commissioner Lean. Commissioner Tate.
Here.
Commissioner Hill.
Here.
Commissioner Wood. Commissioner Edinger.
Here.
Commissioner Hart.
Here.
Commissioner Freeman.
Here.
Thank you, Melissa. Bridget, would you lead us in the pledge tonight?
Yeah. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Do any of the commissioners tonight have a conflict of interest with any of the agenda items tonight?
None here.
Okay, there are none. Next then would be the approval of our February 26th meeting last month.
I shall move.
Okay,
Second.
any other comments? All in favor of approving the February 26, 2018 meeting minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Meeting minutes are approved. Let's go ahead and move on to the staff report, Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, as you said moments ago, spring equinox is here, so winter's behind us, and people are starting to get active. Little League was out this last weekend preparing Canfield and for their season. NIC is using Ramsey due to the fact that Memorial's down, and so they're using Ramsey for their practices. They found another field to play their games at, but they are out there right now getting that field ready. And let's see, the Parks Department, we installed bollards around the K27 feature and did the remainder of the drip system around that. So we're still working on some things there. We have some irrigation to install on the south side for grass, and so we'll be putting those heads in. But our bollards in place, we did those in-house, and then we're going to go back and then weld chain to those in about another week or so after we get most of this other stuff done to give us better access. So the front side will have bollards with a single chain loop. The back side will have a double chain to try and keep people out, and just a sign to have people be gracious about staying out of the memorial. And so we're working on that, and Katie will be talking to you about a grant tonight that she received about the Seagraves Park. And also we did something new this year. We're planning to do it year after year. Our crew worked over City Park tree pruning. If you go on our Facebook page, you'll see the boys in action and a nice video that Jeff helped us produce, and Katie was there talking about the work. We rented a 120-foot lift, and they pruned City Park, and they went down into the Forest Cemetery and pruned some of that. We plan to do that year after year. It was a pretty successful program. We had a week, the lift, so it was very effective, and we'll just keep doing it every year. That's it.
Any questions for Bill? Bill, do you want to make an announcement regarding the Atlas River front property and the meeting that's coming up this week on Thursday?
Yes, certainly. Thank you. So Thursday evening, 5:30 at the ice arena down on, it's called Frontier
Ice Arena.
So down there in Celtice, we're going to have another open house for folks to weigh in about our Atlas Mill project. So we had one of those here in this room last month, and this is another one for the public to weigh in on what they want to see, their vision of this parcel.
Is there other opportunities for the public to provide comments if they're not in attendance at this meeting?
They could probably write that in, but I believe there's another one that's coming up, but the date has yet to be set.
Okay. Thank you, Bill. Do any of the commissioners have any announcements or comments? Okay. Does any of our audience tonight wish to make any public comments? Okay, thank you. Okay. Our next item then is Wildfire Community Preparedness Day, and Katie Kosanke is going to give us a presentation.
Commissioners, thank you very much for having me here today. I just have one slide here. I want to talk with you a little bit about the Wildfire Community Preparedness Day that we are planning. The Parks and Recreation Department and Fire Department are holding this event. It's going to be May 5th at Veteran Centennial Seagraves Park, and it's supported by the National Fire Protection Association, and they encourage these events to happen the first Saturday in May all across the country. And it teaches people how to adapt to living in areas with, urban and wildland interfaces and, wildfire prevention. And it really encourages everyone, all neighbors, to come together and take action to prevent losses. The event will consist of some educational booths, and we're going to do a sample fuel reduction area on the east side of the park, in the wooded area that's closest to the neighborhood to the east there. We'll have lots of safety information, and the fire department will also have a sign-up sheet. If anyone wants to sign up for like a courtesy inspection, they can come out to their house and give recommendations as far as pruning up trees, getting pine needles away, using plants that are more beneficial for like fire-tolerant landscapes, having buffer areas, that sort of thing. Just ways that they can make their properties safer. And we work with the fire department to oversee lots of fuel reduction projects that we've done on many properties. And for this property, we have submitted an application for a FEMA grant for fuel reduction at the entire site. We're still waiting to hear about that. But in the meantime, there was a small grant that looks like we are getting for the Wildfire Community Preparedness Day specifically. So that will assist us in getting some tools and educational publications that we're able to hand out at the event. And we'll use that sample area too as a tool if anyone wants to come and check it out, what they should be doing on their properties, reducing some of the shrubs and pruning up the trees. And we also plan on having a second event. That one we haven't confirmed yet, but we're looking at holding it specifically for the residents of the Armstrong Park neighborhood, since they're definitely basically in a wildland urban interface area. So that's a group that we definitely want to get the information to as well. And as that is confirmed, we'll get the information out about that as well. So we'll hope you'll join us on Saturday, May 5th for our Wildfire Community Preparedness Day. Thank you.
Any questions for Katie?
Yes, if I could, just one. Katie, of the area that's the wooded area there at Seagraves Park, how much would be treated, if you will, as a result of the demonstration project?
We haven't quite determined that. We were thinking maybe the distance of the property and maybe even doing like a 20-foot swath. It kind of depends on how many experienced volunteers we can recruit for it. We're not going to ask, members of the general public to help out with the labor part of it. We're going to use some more experienced pruning volunteers, maybe, some of our staff or fire department staff if they're interested as well.
Commissioner, if I may, this is more of an educational component for the neighborhood and the public in general. So what we were going to do is just a demonstration to illustrate how it's done. So the cleanup that maybe you're interested in is you'll see our staff doing as we move forward from here on out.
Okay, great. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Monty McCulley, our Trails Coordinator. Another presentation on Foothills Trail.
Good evening, Commissioners. So I'm here tonight to talk to you about the Foothills Trail. Now this is going to be brand new to you because it's been in our plan, our trail master plan for several years now, but we're just finally starting to move forward on it. And this is an information-only presentation because we're at the very beginning stages. We're not yet ready to take it forward to council. We need to identify the costs of conceptuals and engineering and identify funding sources before we go that far. But I just wanted to give you a heads up and the public a heads up on what we are looking at in the future to bring to Coeur d'Alene. So the purpose of this trail is to provide a north-south corridor on the east side of town. You know, we have the Centennial Trail on the south, we have the Prairie Trail on the west, and we have some bike lanes on the north along Prairie Avenue, but we have nothing on the east side of town. So the idea of this is to connect neighborhoods, schools, parks, get that side of town moving and active. So it's in the master plan. It's a multi-use trail, just like the Centennial Trail. And it'll be in the ITD right-of-way from Coeur d'Alene Lake Drive at Silver Beach all the way up to 15th Street for this first phase. In an additional phase, we will attempt to bring it up 15th and around Best Mountain to Canfield. But that's all private property. That would take negotiation and speaking with the public and probably buying right away. So this first phase we can actually do, we actually have permission to go ahead and start looking at funding for this trail. So it's also in the Natural Open Space Management Plan. It'll connect Fernand Natural Area all the way up to Canfield Mountain hopefully someday. And Mike Kimpton and I came up with the name Foothills Trail a couple of years ago. It'd be about 4 or 5 miles long. It'd be a really nice addition to our city. It'll be right along the mountains on the edge of the city, so it'd be in the trees. So here we have a map of Coeur d'Alene. I'm going to click here again, and the trail's going to pop up. So you can see it starts all the way down here by Silver Beach, follows I-90 right away, dips into Fernand Natural Area, and follows all the way along to about, I think that's Pennsylvania, maybe the next road up, and goes under the freeway. And our first phase, what we're looking at now, would end right here. In the future, once we redo 15th Street, a trail will be added in, will be included in the remake of it, so we'll get the trail all the way up to Best. All this is pie in the sky stuff that we'd like to do someday. So trails bring economic impact to our cities. They provide ways to keep our public moving and active, and it'll help get kids to school a little safer without having to, go down streets on their bikes if they're not comfortable with that, or get rides to school and jam up our streets every morning and afternoon. So we'll be utilizing easements, so we won't have to be going into people's backyards. And I think I accidentally put the longer version of this presentation on here instead of the shorter version, so I'm going to kind of click through this. So here's some overhead maps of this.
Oh, I see.
A little bit closer than the overhead I showed you earlier. There's a construction bench along the Potlatch Hill Road here that starts all the way down here. Somebody suggested we even could bring this all the way down to this parking lot. That way we could have a signalized intersection here, or at least a crossing light to bring us to the Centennial Trail. We could come all the way up and come into Fernand. It would come in this far just for topography. The trail would be too steep if we didn't go into the park. Then we're going to follow another construction bench all the way down into Fernand Village. This portion of the trail, actually from right about here, is currently being built with a subdivision that's coming in right now. So it'll connect from here all the way up to Pennsylvania here. Then the trail will go under the freeway because of constrained right-of-way on the east side and come to this side of the road. And come all the way up to 15th Street here. So in the future, we're looking at extending it all the way up here, maybe looking at getting permissions to bring it behind the subdivision and into this future subdivision, if it ever gets built. We'd have a trail included with that subdivision and connect us up to Nettleton Gulch. And even that would be a great trail system. Going north from there, another pie in the sky would be getting property owners to sell us a portion of their property to get the trail up to Canfield. Of course, from here up, that's kind of not possible anymore. There's houses built there now, but at least we'd be getting a trail connecting some major recreational areas in our city, and there'd still be routes, residential streets that you could get from the end of the trail up to Canfield Mountain.
Monty, has there been any date established for when the 15th Street improvements will be occurring? Because it also will have an impact on frontage of Cherry Hill Park.
I believe it's next year is when the funding will come in for that. I think this year all the funding for streets is going in the government way, connecting it up, widening it up to Prairie Avenue. So it's either going to be 2019 or 2020, but I can confirm that for you with our engineer. Here's some...
Curious because it has been discussed for some time, and I'm just wondering if there's been a time frame.
Like Monty says, it's going to be a year or more out, but we've got on the hook for some improvements for our parcel that we picked up from Eagles, and so we're aware of that, and so we'll plan for it accordingly.
Okay.
So here's the construction bench down by Silver Beach. You can see it's already wide, almost ready for a trail. And here's some of the views. That's Rutledge Trailhead. This is the portion at Fernand Village. And heading up, you can see it's a really wide section of space. You can see ITD has a type 4 fence here. We'd probably have to put another fence on the inside, keep people from walking into the freeway. And there's some, this is where the trail goes into the development that's coming. That would be pretty expensive getting a bridge over that. And then you can see it narrows a little bit, but it's still 30 feet wide, getting all the way north. And that is it. If you have any questions about this trail.
Could you go back to the photo of Best where you want to build?
The map?
By that property with the man-made lake kind of thing.
Oh, the picture?
It was the map picture. It was one of the maps.
Right here.
No, I think it's the one with the, oh yes, that's exactly it. How far away would the trail be from the start of the pond on their side?
On the other side?
Yeah, on the side with the big, on the mountain. How far would that be?
Well, we'd have to go survey it. First, we'd have to talk to the property owners to even get permission. I've walked through it, and there's room for it. We'd have to do some work. We'd probably put it back, whatever the topography allowed. We'd try to go a little high in case the water level rises. We don't want the trail to be underwater part of the year.
And then what about privacy for the homeowners?
And that would be something we'd have to see if they're okay with. It's on the other side, and it's pretty far away, really, if you walk through those woods there. That does all belong to that homeowners association and those properties individually, so they'd have to be okay with it. We do have other routes, like bringing the trail to Best and building a bike lane along the street. And then when this development, if it ever comes in, we'd connect it up to Nettleton Gulch. That way, if the property owners aren't okay with it, then we'd still have a route for bikes to get up through there.
Commissioners, I might remind you that this is just an opportunity for you to see the first thought on this deal. So the kind of detail you're asking about is quite a ways out. So this is just for your entertainment and enjoyment to know what we're working on, because all of those details will come out as we look at each one of these sections and get permission from those property owners and all those different right-of-ways. So the detail of it is yet to be finalized.
Okay.
That's great. That's neat.
Anything else for Monty? Thank you, Monty. Well, Bill Greenwood is next, and you're going to give us an update on the Idaho Workers Memorial.
So you all have been aware, we've been working with Brad Cedar Bloom for, I think it was 10 years, we said, Brad? Looking for a home for this Workers Memorial. When we did the Mullen realignment and now Fort Ground Drives, we located a spot, and we've shared that with you previously, just a little bit west of the Bricks restroom in the north end of City Park. So Brad's here to give you an update on where he is today and the concepts that we'll show you about what he wants to provide for this. So he's got some donations, some in-kind stuff. We're doing the irrigation modification in the site. And so with that, I'll bring up Brad and let you have him give you that presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Brad.
Good evening. Been about a year since I was here and you approved the project. There's been the first one was a conceptual design that we had and I presented. I started looking at some of the different designs, and I talked with a contractor out of Spokane that I worked for quite a little bit, and they talked me out of going from precast to brick. Much easier to get it done, less equipment to do it. So right here is the location. Bill and Jeff and I, his foreman Jeff, were down last Thursday, and we actually put some buckets out and did the layout and got probably within a couple of feet of where we were going to actually set this to make sure that we didn't impact any other trees. We'll have to mark the irrigation when it gets turned on in May, and we kind of twisted it around a little bit more so that it's aiming more towards the parking lot just a little bit more. We've taken the radiuses out of it and made everything squared off. It's much easier to do straight with brick than round. Trying to make it as easy as possible. The columns are actually called a ground face block. It's similar to the walls in here, and then the brick will be a common brick. I've got a donation from Contractor Supply here in town that has pallets of brick that were either returned or they didn't use enough, and when you mix and match them, they all just kind of blend together, and so I'll be getting that at an extremely good deal. On top of that, there's in the center, those are two pieces of channel iron, and there's going to be the eternal flame. It's not on here because the designer put it on and it looked like a campfire, and so I took it back off, and I actually have some ironworker apprentices that have some artistic ability that are creating that for me right now. I can't really make stick men look like stick men, but they're going to be working on that. I've already seen it's in the works. I talked with Bill a little bit when we got this design on the CMU wall on the back. Anything that's exposed, it'll be a colored brick until the foliage grows up, just so that it doesn't look like gray concrete. We will have enough foliage that eventually it will cover that whole back. The plaques it's called absolute black granite, which will be similar or identical to the ones in the Fallen Heroes Park. That's what I took a picture of, and I went over and had them tell me what it was. And actually, it's the least expensive of it. It's just kind of like building a house again. I was really hoping I wouldn't have to go picking colors and doing all this, but I actually have people call me every day wanting to work on this. Guy called today itching to do the concrete. I've been fundraising for a year and really have not been paying attention to a construction schedule. Now that I'm really close to my fundraising target, I started calling around, and people are booked out till like September. So maybe going with Plan B or Plan C. I was actually going to use the Mason's apprenticeship, but it got over in January. I might be able to pull some of them in for some I don't know, I taught our apprenticeship, and every time I'd have absenteeism, I would pull them in on a Saturday, and it would be forced labor, but I would get it done. That might be an alternative here. But this is about the color scheme. The footprint did not change from the first design that we had to the second. It's taken up the exact same amount. And then we're working, Bill, can you pull that? No, the very first one, the overlay. That one. So I'm working with Bill and Jeff, and we're going to be putting that sidewalk in, coming in. There's a, right there, and it's going to come in between those two trees where it exits on this other side. But rather than dip in with the radiuses, that's going to be straight as well. That'll be the last phase that I do. I really hope that we can do it like a 5 or 6 week build out once we get started on it. April 28th is Workers' Memorial Day. We'll be having a ceremony and a ceremonial groundbreaking. Doesn't mean that we're really going to tear sod up on that day. I'm just going to spray paint some shovels gold and pretend to do a little digging. And when I can get the everything going and everything dialed in, then we'll pull the trigger and get going.
Great. Any questions for Brad?
So, Brad, from your comments, I would gather that the likely target date for the construction may be in late summer, early fall?
I was really hoping to build out all on May, but it might get pushed back. Where I'm hung up is on a mason now.
Okay.
The one that I had lined up, and they were going to cut me a sweet deal for it. I talked to them and said, you know, we can't even think about it until mid-September. So now I'm shopping for masons.
Okay.
Great.
Good luck.
Thank you, Brad, for the update. It's be very nice when it gets done.
Yeah.
Nice design.
Our next agenda item is an action item. The decision point would be, should the Parks and Recreation Commission approve a lease with Neil and Anna Lunt, doing business as Brooks Seaplane Service, LLC. Brooks Seaplane has been leasing Bay 5 on the commercial dock and providing plane rides over our region for over 30 years, and is a favorite attraction with our community and visitors alike. The Lunts have purchased the business and want to carry on this tradition. The leasee agrees to pay as rental for the right of such moorage space and the use of said portion of said dock for the first year of the lease, the sum of $5,992.60, payable as follows: $5,899.20 based on a monthly rental of $481.60, payable on April 1st, 2018, for the period of April 1st, 2018 through March 31st, 2019, and $93.40, which is the 2% fee assessed by the Department of Lands as identified in Section 4. Annual fee increases will be based on the Western Consumer Price Index. Brooks Seaplane has an existing lease in place. This new lease with Neil and Anna Lunt is a 5-year lease commencing April 1st, 2018 and ending March 31st, 2023. The lessee may request in writing a 5-year extension of this agreement for the period from April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2028 by submitting to the lessor a written request for extension after April 1st, 2022 and prior to September 1st, 2022. A lot of dollar figures and dates.
A lot
in
of
that
legalese
report.
and lease stuff, yes.
So again, the recommendation be whether the Parks and Recreation Commission should approve this lease with Neil and Anna Lunt, doing business as Brooks Seaplane Service, LLC. Do you have anything to add, Bill?
No, I just want to extend Mr. Lunt's apologies. He's out of town, and he wanted to be here this evening. We have been working along with him. Randy, our attorney, Randy Adams, and Troy Tymason have spoken with him, and we're comfortable with where we're going forward with this with Mr. Lunt. He had told me today on the phone that his intent is to provide exactly what Grant has done for the community for years. He doesn't see any reason to change something, as he put it, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And so I agree with him.
At this time, do any of the dock facilities or anything needing upgrades, or is
Yes,
everything in order as far as that's
they
concerned?
did, and they have been repaired. So Mike over here, sitting next to me, this spring, late winter, has replaced some pilings, and so we worked on that. So we're in pretty good shape right now.
Okay. Anybody have comments or questions or wish to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we grant the lease.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made to recommend a lease with Neil and Anna Lunt for doing business as Brooks Seaplane Service LLC. Any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's approved unanimously. I guess that moves forward to
General
general
services.
services.
Yep, okay, I'll get on the agenda this week.
Okay, and finally is another action item tonight regarding Veterans Centennial Park. The Natural Open Space Committee is seeking to have the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend that the City Council adapt the master plan that has been created for the Veterans Centennial property as an addendum to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the city's comprehensive plan. Veterans Centennial Park is a 16-acre parcel held in trust by Panhandle Parks Foundation with the express purpose of preserving the site for public use. This property was donated by Emma Van Locken for the use as a public park. The Natural Open Space Committee has been tasked with developing a master plan to serve as a guide for the development of this property. Working with various groups and interested parties, this is the plan that has been created and is supported by the Natural Open Space Committee. This plan is intended to serve as a guide for the development of a public park. No funds are currently budgeted for this project. Having a plan in place enables the city to pursue grants, matching funds and donations to implement the creation of the park, and to allow the city to budget funding in the future for this project. Nothing in this master plan commits the city to expending money at this time. By having this master plan approved, a guide to limited development of the site as funding, grants, or in-kind services become available will be in place. Again, the decision tonight would be whether Parks and Recreation Commission recommends that the city adopt the Veterans Centennial Master Plan as an addendum to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the city's comprehensive plan. So we'll have Mike Kempton come on up and kind of give us a review on what has changed since we saw the project last.
Good evening, Commissioners. I don't do PowerPoints every day, so. Thank you. So here we are again. We met last month with some modifications to the management or the master plan for the site. This was the original gift deed that Emma Van Locken wrote out to give the park to the Panhandle Parks Foundation. And the key points were she donated it in order to encourage development of a park and recreation area for the benefits of the citizens of the city of Coeur d'Alene. It's supposed to be devoted exclusively for the benefit of the public. And she also stipulated this park shall be retained in as natural a state as possible. And that's basically where the balancing act has been coming from for this entire process, is we want to have a public park up there, but also keep it as natural as possible. This is a map that shows the general location of the park, and I think it's very interesting that it is the only publicly owned facility in a very large part of the city. Basically, it's the only public land east of 15th Street and south of Hazel. So this entire Fernan Bench area has no other public parks, nor does the older part of town east of 15th Street. Here's a close-up map, or a closer map, that shows the boundaries of the property, and it shows the character of it. This northern half of the property is a wooded slope, heavily wooded. The rest of it is an old farm field or pasture of some sort that's fairly cleared, and you can see our easement that was dedicated over to Fernan Hill Road. This was the plan that was presented in June, excuse me, to the Parks and Rec Commission that we got a lot of public comment on at the time. So we went back to the drawing board, scaled it back, and we presented this to you guys last month. It took out a lot of the more active elements, reduced the parking lot, kind of made it a much simpler design and much more achievable. So we received more public comment, so we made a couple more changes, and you can see them here. The parking lot has been further reduced, and the amphitheater was removed and kind of replaced with a little gathering area kind of next to the activity center of the property. Don't know if you guys want to take a look at that, or you're good with that? This thing's been through an extensive public vetting process. We started with the Park and Rec's master plan back in 2006. And some of the key points was it specifically referenced Veterans Centennial Park as being undeveloped and listed some of the suitable activities or facilities that they felt at that time was appropriate for this site. That was supported by the comprehensive plan, which basically said we should be in the business of developing parks and facilities on our properties and encouraging public recreation on all of our facilities as well, with an emphasis on open space, passive parks, and water access, which this park does not have. So the Natural Open Space Committee wrote the Natural Open Space Management Plan, and they talked specifically about the existing site access and trails, which were very minimal. And the key recommendations they had in that plan was to build an entrance road, construct a parking area, and to build a pathway system in the park. They also talked about the existing public facilities, which there are none. So some of the components that were brought up at that time that are still in this plan are a Veterans Plaza to honor the veterans, a gazebo, and a restroom shelter. So the master plan was presented at the Parks and Rec Commission on June 19th, the first slide I showed you of the map. And then the modified version, well, we had a workshop on November 20th of 2017 where we sought and received a lot of public comment. We unveiled the revised plan on February 19th and accepted more public comment. We've had a lot of questions about the woodland component of this property, specifically the safety related to fires, and I just wanted to have this in here. Our Urban Forestry Department and Fire Department regularly survey all of our sites, and these are some of the key points that they recommended. All these were included in the Natural Open Space Management Plan, and they include ongoing work. This was the input we received back from one of the descendants of Emma Van Locken, and the key parts were he supported the minimalist nature of the plan, thought it would please his aunt very much, and told us you have fulfilled our aunt's wishes. So the changes we made to the master plan based on citizen input, we got rid of the paved trail, or actually it wasn't a paved trail, we moved the trail on the east side of the property further from private property. The rain garden was eliminated due to the fact we found out there was not actually a water feature there. Secondary pathways were eliminated to simplify the design. The concept of an amphitheater was changed to a smaller gathering area further from the property boundary. That was basically a change that was made after our last meeting. The footprint of the parking lot was reduced. It's been reduced even further. We did get input from our fire department on what the minimal turn radiuses are for fire engines, which we want to keep to. We simplified the landscaping. The overall number of trees planted was reduced to open up view sheds. And the paved trail along the entrance road was removed. So that's basically where we are today.
So Mike, now having gone through kind of the summary of what has been revised since our meeting last month, can we now go back to the current plan and take another look at that?
Oops. That is the current plan. The parking lot was reduced further. This is basically the bare minimum size of a parking lot that's needed to turn a bus or a fire engine around. And you remember there was an amphitheater over in this area. That was removed but was replaced with a small gathering area right here closer to the parking lot. And those were only two significant changes were made from the second to the third version of this plan.
And this plan still has a vault toilet?
Well, not necessarily a vault. It has a place for restroom facility. I'm kind of a fan of the portable restroom shelters.
Okay.
Since they get serviced by a private contractor and we can pull them out when they're not necessary. But a vault's a possibility too.
The gazebo, I know this is a conceptual plan, but is there any thought about what that size
I'm
would be?
thinking it would be very similar to the gazebo that's currently at Winton Park or North Pines. Those are both fairly small structures. They look pretty natural, pretty nice little wooden structures.
Okay.
They're probably about the size
Is there
between you and the
questions for Mike?
stage.
And to be clear, there are no funds currently budgeted for this project.
No, there are not.
So there might be, I think, there might be something that will happen, but not very much right away.
Not right away. I mean, to support public use, it'd be nice to get a road and a parking lot in here. When I say parking lot, we would look at gravel, of course.
Yeah, first of all, Mike, fantastic job in staying patient and adopting a lot of the recommendations we've heard, listening to the public comments that we've received. I think this is as close to what we could do and still have a park as we could possibly get. The piece of this that I think people don't realize is that once this goes forward, and if adopted by the city council, this actually protects this area and keeps it dedicated to this type of use, this intent, and preserves that going forward so that there isn't some other type of use interspersed or imposed on this property. So this is, I think, a great result, and I think it provides us some good direction going forward.
I'd like to take just a second to thank Mike Walker from the Open Space Committee. He is the one that's done all the graphic work and put the plans together and made the modifications based on the requests we received. And he did that without charging the city.
Wow.
Well, we
that's
thank
nice.
Mike very much for all
bet.
the time and effort he spent on this. Much appreciated.
And I just wanted to add that although this takes a lot of work, to have everyone collaborating and, everybody listening to each other, it appears that we've got something that is making everybody comfortable and following the wishes of our donor.
Just kind of a quick question for you, Mike, on vegetation. Obviously, the north portion is on a kind of a sloped woodland, but in the
Yes.
open space, is that all going to be pretty much maintained as natural grass? And
Well, yeah, we plan on maintaining his natural fescue and getting rid of the invasive weeds through the application of specific broadleaves for it. And there'll be some limited tree planting. There's still a few places for trees in here around the parking lot and around this entrance road, and they would probably be nice specimen trees. We'd like to add some white pine in there, just a couple of them, so people can see what they used to look like.
really, the landscape irrigation is really going to be limited to what is developed around the improved parts, around the parking and.
My thought is we would basically have a residential size meter in there primarily to be used to establish trees. We're not going to irrigate turf out here. It would be too expensive. Plus, there's limited water supply up there.
What do you foresee as kind of the typical maintenance that parks staff will have to do on this park?
There's going to be a rough
If and when
mowing.
it gets developed.
The open area will have a rough mowing several times a year, and it's going to have to be herbicided regularly, as we do with most of our other sites. The wooded area is just going to have constant maintenance to reduce fuels in it, possibly to add a little bit more diverse trees in there once areas in the canopy open up from old grand fir rotting, which we have a problem with in there now. And then the facilities, I'm sure, would be visited daily for trash and maintenance and vandal checking, graffiti checking, just like we do all our other sites.
Okay? Well, do you have anything else for Mike? Ron?
Yeah, Bill, has there anything else been mentioned about, it's Veteran Centennial Park, but about Seagraves Centennial Park, or Seagraves,
Correct. So the deed that was given to me at the last meeting was the one that was recorded, and that was the one that said Seagraves. The one that I had that was a year later that was not really recorded, it talked about the Veteran Centennial. So we'll have some more discussion about that, but I think a blending of the two would probably be appropriate. Her brothers were all veterans, and hence we have this veteran memorial piece in it. So something along the lines of veterans, or Seagraves Veterans Memorial Park, I'm not certain, but, you know, a way to honor both of those documents, and I think it would satisfy her wishes very well.
okay.
Would anybody in the audience like to comment? Okay. You'll be limited to 3 minutes, and if you would state your name and address for the record, you can.
My name is Shelley Hurtado. I'm at 2795 East Fernand Hill Road. Thank you. Job well done. Thank you very, very much for listening to the public input. This is excellent. I think it's a perfect example of how the system works, or we would hope it would work always like this. So thank you from the few neighbors that are here representing Fernand Hill. Thank you, very, very well done. One quick question, do you happen to know what if and when the whole trail is put in, what the distance would be? Just roughly, the walking trail?
We've yet to map that out, no.
Okay, all right. Excellent, can't wait.
Thank you, Shelley.
Good evening. My name is Gene Foster. I'm a new resident to the area, and I can point to my property. It's this property right here. I fully support what you've done with the plan. It's exactly what I expected when I bought the house. I expected the open space. You've done that. I congratulate you on that effort. I noted with two comments that you had this evening that adoption of this locks and protects the property. And I fully agree with that, and I urge you to take this to City Council for that purpose. I also noted that tonight is not the time to talk about finances, but I have to remind you that there's a fire hazard here, and I would hope that you can bring forward money for fire safety. Your staff is already on that. They're faithful, they're innovative, they're doing a great job, but they need more funding. So I would hope that at some time, maybe not as part of the park, but maybe as a safety issue in your budget, you have a line item that says fire safety. I've gone through the forest back here. It's heavily eroded, decayed. It is a fire hazard. What is not commonly recognized is that this park sits at a choke point on Fernand Hill Road and French Gulch. If this catches fire, there's a hazard that it could spread both ways. It's about 6 minutes from a fire department to this area, and fire is a real concern. Other than that, everything is great. Great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close the public comment. If anybody has any other questions or comments, or I'll entertain a motion.
I would move that the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend to the city to adopt the Veterans Centennial Master Plan as an addendum to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the city's comprehensive plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Tate and seconded by Commissioner Hill then to recommend that the city adopt the Veterans Centennial Master Plan as an addendum to the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and the city's comprehensive plan. Is there any further comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that carries forward unanimously, and I guess that too will go to General Services?
That's correct.
Okay. Will that be on their agenda for next week?
Yes, I think I have to get items to them by Wednesday for the following week.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
Yep. Anything else? Okay, unless anybody else has got any comments or announcements, I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of meeting announcements here before we adjourn. Our next Park and Recreation Commission workshop will be Tuesday, April 3rd. That'll be at 11:30 at the meeting room at Caruso's Deli here in Spokane, or here in Coeur d'Alene. And then our next regular monthly meeting will be Monday, April 16th, 5:30 p.m. right here in the community room of the library. And with that, I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner Ettinger and seconded by Commissioner Hart to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.